we're gonna role play a little conversation I had this morning. My friend called me and she was like getting ready. She said she had a photo shoot and she was worried about doing her makeup, and I was like, girl, let's FaceTime. I'm gonna like map it out. We're gonna do it together. And I just used black eyeshadow because I'm like, I'm not gonna do my makeup at this hour. Through showing the shapes with the black eyeshadow, I feel like I learned a lot in the way that I explain things, and she was able to really get it. I want to recreate this. So this is not a makeup video. This is just me putting shapes on my face and explaining how to layer your makeup. So when I called her, she said she just put primer on. I told her the first step is a highlighter underneath your foundation in your T-zone like this, because anytime we apply something, you always want to start where you want the most product, which is usually in the center, and you can blend it out from there. And then she said she was going to be using the Estee Lauder Double Wear foundation, which is more matte, and so this just kind of gives a glow from underneath. She said her skin was feeling really dry, so she also had the e.l.f. Halo Glow, which I love. So I was like, put a tiny bit over top of those areas just to give it a little bit more moisture. And I said blend that into with your hands while your primer is hopefully still wet. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're putting foundation over top. And I said while your foundation is still kind of wet, we're going to do our concealer in these places. We're going for a lifted look today. Right here, right here. Do the tiniest little boop-de-doo with our finger. We're going to jump a space and go right down the center of our nose like that. Then whatever's left over on your brush, just a little along the jawline. And we have it just below the cheek because we need room to move this upwards like this and downwards to kind of carve out the underline of our cheekbone here. If you do it too low, you're gonna be highlighting this part of your face, which is like, I don't know, if you want to do that, do it, but we're not blending that first. I like to go in areas of importance. So for me, underneath my eye, I like to blend out like this with a wet beauty blender. And when you wet your beauty blender, get it really nice and fluffy, like wring it out a few times, and then make sure it gets nice and puffy, and then squeeze all that moisture out. Like make it feel dry again just with your hands. So areas of importance, we're gonna go from here and blend it out towards this way on the top of our cheekbone, I guess here, and connecting it to the center. Putting too much can increase creasing, and blend it kind of all the way up here. I also like to go on the lid, but just with whatever's left over on the brush. Next, I like to go along the jawline and start to blend that out, but dabbing with a beauty blender. I like to avoid bringing it down too much. We're gonna come back to concealer again in a second, but the very last place is gonna be the nose, which we want to blend the least. So once everything else is blended, just blend out the two highlights on the nose. Then I said grab your bronzer. We're starting with our crease. So this is the kind of motion that we're creating with our bronzer, and we're keeping it all lifted. But when it's blended, it's not going to be like, you know, harsh line, but this just connects everything for when we do our bronzer later. If you feel like it's starting to go down, you can take your finger and kind of lift it up. But I noticed when she's doing it, she's going like this, and I'm like, that's pulling it down. You don't want to pull it down. We're lifting everything up. I want to imagine like an invisible marker like at your temple up here for everything to connect with. Because if you're going like this and you're trying to give this lifted look, it doesn't look lifted anymore. Now you're pushing it down. And your concealer's probably still a little bit wet that you just blended. So use that wet concealer to our advantage to help manipulate the shadow, keeping it lifted. Our contour is gonna meet to that point too. On a smaller scale, if you want to have some impact, but like maybe you're not as confident with liner, take your eyeshadow, your dark brown, and smudge it along your lash line. Your concealer should still be wet, and you can use it to kind of manipulate and drag it out. Again, imagining that line right here. See how this is going there? This is going there now. So if you were to do it on the side that you just put your contour in, the bronzer, they should kind of meet like this. This is ridiculous, but I feel like this was really helpful for her, so I wanted to share it. So bronzer is a really good transition color. Now we're going to do blush, but remember how I told you we're starting in the place you want the most product? So I told her she had a little fluffy blush brush, and I told her to start here, do little circles, and pull it out to her temples like this. And I did this with the black eyeshadow too. I said she can pull it up kind of under her eye here. But this is the kind of, sorry I have makeup remover so it's blotchy, but this is the kind of shape that we're looking for blush. Again, lifted, meeting in that temple zone that we talked about a second ago. Lightly blending it here, but she has full cheekbones, so I didn't want to make it too rosy so that it would kind of add heaviness here. I wanted to keep it gradiently light. And then once the blush which I should take off, is blended in. I told her to hug right underneath her cheekbone, and if she's not sure, go on top of it rather than in it, because too low will kind of drag your face down. So going right on the top close to where it starts to sink in is a good place, and then blending it upwards, and it'll just melt beautifully into the blush like this. And see if I go too low, it's giving like some of the vibe. Then the same for, we already started to contour in on the sides of the upper brow here, but now we're just dragging it down. So because this was already blended from before like that, it'll transition a lot nicer underneath the nose a little bit, down the side, just above here. So now for highlighting, I'm gonna use white eyeshadow. Highlighting, again, where you want the most product, where the light will hit you first, and blend it out from there. Same with here. Right on top of your cheekbones, nothing should sink in. You can blend it up to those areas if you want. Again, a little dabby dab on the nose, right in the center of the nose. If you want to be a baddie from 2016, you could do a little like swoop-de-woo there. And we're gonna do in the inner corners of the eyes, but not in a rounded shape like this. But we're gonna go kind of mostly on the top part and just ever so lightly on the bottom. See how the roundness change? I mean, you could do that if you want, slay, but I like it a little bit more sharp. I think if you want, you could highlight your brow bone, but we didn't do that. We're just keeping it chill. And for lip liner, to give kind of like a pouty, longer lasting one, I told her to fill her Cupid's bow and blend it out like this, and then fill in the outer parts of her lip, rub them together. And then once she does this with a long-lasting lip liner, she'll be able to just touch up with gloss throughout the day. Oh, and I also said put a little concealer right in the center just to like really make it pouty. But look how much poutier my lips look by doing that versus with nothing. Ooh. Anyways, it was a really cool experience with her, and I hope that this helped. It said it helped her, so I was like, oh, maybe it'll help other people. So any hoodles. Love you, bye.